Sir, you can start your PowerPoint, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You can open up
Yes,
your
sir.
PowerPoint.
Yes, sir. It will take another 2-3 minutes. I thought I will till then talk to you.
No issue, sir.
I can
1
throw
minute.
some questions meanwhile.
Yeah. You have. I am sending you the webcam request, sir. Please switch on your webcam.
Yeah, it's on.
Meenakshi, ma'am.
Is it
Meenakshi,
on?
ma'am.
Are you getting webcam?
Yes, sir. We are. We just got your webcam. Yes, sir. Now we have got it.
Yeah.
So, sir, today, yeah, we have around 20 people online right now. We
That's great.
usually wait for around 25-30 people and then we start. So
Okay.
for our talk today, we have invited Dr. Meenakshi Yevla ma'am, HOD from JNMC Savangi panelist, and Dr. Raj Gajbia sir, HOD GMC Nagpur Surgery as a
Great,
panelist.
great.
So Meenakshi ma'am is online already, but I can't listen her. Meenakshi ma'am, hello.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Sir, there is some echo from you.
बंद करो ना, बंद करो. Hello?
Yes, sir. We are online, sir. Sir, you can
Yes,
at least
yes.
start discussion, whatever you want to introduce about the topic and all. We have 25 people online and we are 8:04. We have just 8:04. If you want, you can just start the discussion about the topic, sir. We don't mind.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. And I'm really thankful to Dr. Prashant Rahate and Dr. Yogesh for their kind invitation and all coordination, getting it happen. So I'm really delighted to be here in front of Vidarbha Surgeons Association. And I'm really happy that they are making best use of this lockdown period in having every day these webinars. So today I will be talking about laparoscopic management of hydrated cyst of liver. The hydrated cyst in India, they are more common in northern part of India. And in Maharashtra, they are more common in Vidarbha belt. So it is basically your disease. And I tell you in my practice also, almost more than 60% of the patients, they come from Vidarbha region, like the districts nearby to Marathwada, like Buldana, Yavatmal, some part of Amravati and Akola. So I get patients from these regions for the management. And only 30 to 35% of the patients, they are from the Marathwada region. And slowly, with the experience, I have developed my new approaches towards the management of these hydrated cysts of the liver. And I will be sharing everything in detail. And as initially, as requested by Dr. Yogesh, that I must have some questions in between to keep the crowd active. And so I think we'll start with first questions. So how many of our audience are actually doing laparoscopic hydrated cyst management?
So the question to audience is how many of them are doing laparoscopic hydrated management? Type Y or N in your answer panel. The question, the answers which we are giving since last 2 days, you can type Y or N in that so that I get an information and I pass on that information to sir. Hello. Yeah. We have started getting responses.
Great,
so,
great.
Come on. Yeah. Just 2 responses. Yeah, 3. So we have around 30 people online right now. Out of those 30, only 3 have replied till now. Yeah, 5, 6. Even one hand is raised. I guess the hand people who are raising hand, they also want to say. Yes, sir. We have around 8 responses by now. say that they are doing laparoscopic.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So the number has increased to 11 now. 11 people have said that they are doing laparoscopic hydrated management.
Okay. My next question is that how many of those who are doing laparoscopic hydrated cyst management, they are doing cystopericystectomy? If they are
Okay.
doing, they have to type yes, only yes, that's all.
Okay. Cystopericystectomy, yes or no? How many of them are doing cystopericystectomy? Yes or no? Come on, start answering. Yeah. I guess you expected the answer of this, sir. What is your expectation, sir?
I don't expect too many of surgeons are doing laparoscopic cystopericystectomy. Hardly maybe 20%,
Yes, sir. Yes.
25%.
So we have got responses maximum no. Only one yes response we have got from one of our senior surgeons, Dr. Gupta sir, Subodh Gupta sir.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Okay, great.
5-6 responses as of now. All are no.
Okay.
So
Now next
even I
question
don't do
is,
cystopericystectomy. I do deroofing. Yes, sir. Next question, please.
okay. Next question is, what is the preferred scolecidal agents they are using?
Okay.
A for saline, B for Savlon, C for betadine, and D for any other than this.
Okay. Hypertonic saline A, B, Savlon, C, betadine. So please
Yes.
response. Yeah. Savlon, betadine, hypertonic saline. Savlon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hypertonic saline. So it's a mixed type of response, sir. Like 2-3 people have said hypertonic saline, 3 people have said cetrimide solution, and 3
Okay.
people have said betadine. A mixed type of response.
Okay. Those who are using betadine, what concentration they are using?
Okay, what concentration? Betadine, what concentration? Anyone? Yeah. I'll ask question directly. Thakur sir has replied about betadine, so I'll ask him, Thakur sir, directly by taking him online. Yeah, Thakur sir, what is the concentration of betadine you use? I have unmuted your mic, sir. 5%. 5%. Thakur sir said he uses 5%.
Okay.
Betadine 5%.
Yeah, it is
that is the only
5%.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's available of in market what we use routinely. It is actually 10% of the original concentration. That means actually 1% of the active ingredient.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Alaka.
What is the ideal concentration you suggest, sir?
See, I have that slide till we'll start discussing that for the as far as scolecidal agents are concerned, the best scolecidal agent which works at the end of 5 minutes of exposure is either normal the saline 20% or
Okay.
ethyl alcohol 95% or
Okay.
cetrimide 1%
Okay.
or betadine not less than 50%.
50%.
50%. 50% of that means 5% of active molecule.
Okay. That means the market preparation which is available as 10%. How should we reconstitute the solution?
So that's not really works. You know, when you are doing intravesical injection of this betadine for the pair procedure or intraperitoneal installation. So
Okay.
I will share one article with Dr. Yogesh. He can circulate into your group later on. So that's the
Okay.
only article I got where everything is discussed in detail. And
Okay,
it was
okay.
published in the Hepatopancreatobiliary, our international journal. So what they have recommended that anything normal, this hypertonic saline up to 10% it can work, but 10% will work for 20 minutes exposure. But if you use 20% hypertonic saline, so at 5 minutes of exposure also, it works as a cholicidal agent.
Okay.
Then this Savlon, they were mentioned that up to 0.5% it works adequately. Savlon, cetrimide with chlorhexidine, that combination.
Okay.
Okay. Then ethyl alcohol, only 95% works effectively at the end of 10 minutes of exposure, 5 to 10 minutes. But less
Okay.
than that, if it is 47%, then it doesn't work even after for 10 minutes of exposure. Okay. Then
And-
hydrogen peroxide of 3%, it works. 1.5% doesn't work. Hydrogen peroxide.
Okay.
Okay. So, and as far as the safety is concerned, the preference wise, most safest is the hypertonic saline. After that, Savlon and Savlon, which is cetrimide plus chlorhexidine,
Mhm.
and alcohol preparation.
Okay. How do we get this ethyl alcohol 95%? What is the-
It's available in the market. Whatever we
Okay.
use in the biochemistry labs and all that, it is usually 95%.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
And
very
so,
new you are sharing.
yeah. So best way I think for a surgeon easy to get and easy to handle also is hypertonic saline, 20%.
Okay.
Yeah. Because again, if you use alcohol and after, if I mean, I'm just scared, if you use cotton and all that, some particle is there unnecessary will be in problem. So I think, and if there is a spillage of alcohol into the general peritoneal cavity, alcohol, then this betadine also, if you give 50% of concentration, and hydrogen peroxide. All these three are known to cause post-operative severe even peritonitis, chemical peritonitis, if there is
Okay.
accidental spillage into the peritoneal cavity, and is not that much associated with 20% of saline,
Okay.
hypertonic saline. So in that way also it is safer to use 20%. Again, it is mentioned that whatever you use, if it goes into biliary tree, it is a nightmare. It will cause sclerosing cholangitis.
Laryngitis. Okay.
Yeah. So none of these solutions are safe to use if there is a biliary communication.
Okay. So safest one to use is hypotonic saline.
Hypertonic saline, right? That to 20%, not
20%.
3%. 20%.
Okay. That 20% hypotonic saline is available commercially.
Yes, yes, it's available.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can make it also. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
My PowerPoint is ready almost. Yes, edited system. Exactly. So here.
Meenakshi madam is also online now. She had some troubles
Great.
before logging in, but she is now
Okay.
online.
Great.
So,
I am also ready with
ma'am,
my presentation.
yeah, Meenakshi ma'am, I have unmuted your mic. You can unmute yourself and just give a brief introduction about topic. Then we'll start. Meenakshi ma'am. Okay, she's not. Okay, sir, we can start.
Is it presentation?
We can see the presentation, sir. Yes.
Great.
We are seeing the presentation. We have 50 people online right now.
Oh,
And,
great. Really?
in another 5 minutes, we'll see around 60-70 people, sir. We can start, sir.
Yes, sir. So again, as I mentioned, can you just take this away? Minimize करते हैं. Minimize करते हैं. पण मला Okay.
There is a small red arrow above it. There is a small red arrow on it, through which you can hide that control panel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a zoonotic disease caused by Echinococcus granulosus. It is worldwide in distribution. In the world, it is more commonly seen in the Mediterranean area and in Middle East and South America. And in India, as I mentioned, it is commonly seen in the northern states. And in Maharashtra, it is more common in the Vidarbha, especially Amravati, Akola, and Buldana district. So as this life cycle is concerned, eggs are ingested by a human, and then in the duodenum, the larvae are released. And through the jejunal submucosa, they enter into the portal circulation. And from the portal circulation, they reaches the liver. The commonest site in the liver is the right lobe upper surface, that is segment 7 and 8, anterior segment. And from there, it may enter into the liver if it escapes liver parenchyma. So my question is here again, larva, to the audience, how this larva reaches to the other organs? Again, through the portal circulation, or B, from liver, it escapes into the systemic circulation. C, directly from the duodenum, it enters into the systemic circulation, or D, through the lymphatics. Dr. Yogesh, am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear. We are seeing the question. So how the larva reaches other organs? These are the 4 options which we have. We have started getting responses. From liver, it escapes into systemic circulation is given by some, and directly into systemic circulation by some. Yeah, B and C is the response which we are getting maximum, sir. B and C.
Okay.
From liver, it escapes into systemic circulation, and C, that it directly enters into systemic circulation. These are the 2 options which we are getting. Yeah. Out of that, yeah, please, sir.
Yeah, you complete. Out
No,
of
sir,
that,
we have taken all the answers. B and C is the maximum answer which most of the people have given.
Okay. So as I mentioned in last slide, that from the liver, at the most, it can escape into the lung. But from the lung microcirculation, it will not go into the left side of the heart. So 99.9% all the larvae who enters into the portal circulation, they are trapped into the liver parenchyma. But very rare instances, from here it will enter into the lung from the right chamber. But the other side, other organs in the body, they enter through the lymphatic circulation. Okay. How lymphatic? From the submucosa, either they enter into the portal circulation or into the bowel lymphatics. For the bowel lymphatics, they go to the cisterna caenae, and from there go to the thoracic duct, and from the thoracic duct directly they enter into the systemic circulation to the jugular vein. And from there they go to the other organs, any part of the body. It has been reported that right from the brain, bones, heart, lung, livers, pancreas, kidneys, uterus, retroperitoneum, intestine, muscles, everywhere it can reach once it enters the systemic circulation through the thoracic duct. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. So we had
Yeah.
one response of lymphatic. We had only one response of lymphatic
So
from Dr.
congratulate, I
Chaudhary.
congratulate that
Yeah,
respondent.
Chaudhary.
Huh? So another question is, how do they survive? Through the arterial blood from the liver parenchyma, or from the venous blood, or from the liver tissue destruction, or from the lymphatic fluid?
Yeah. Come on,
How
start
do they
answering. Yeah. So the answers are pouring in. Tissue destruction is the answer which most of the people have given. They survive through tissue destruction. That's what people are writing here. Yeah. Yes, sir. We have answers like tissue destruction is the thing which most of the people have replied. And one answer is of venous blood, and one is for lymphatic.
Yeah. So again, congratulate who has answered lymphatic fluid, because that is they get nutrition through the lymphatic by osmosis from the tissue surrounding the cyst wall. Okay.
Yes.
They don't get, you must have realized there is no arterial supply to the hydrated cyst. There is no vascular pedicle where from the blood will go to the cyst, either venous or arterial. Definitely, if we'll go into further detail, that there is no tissue destruction in the hydrated cyst. There is no tissue destruction at all. There is a compression of the liver parenchyma around the cyst. So it never destructs the liver parenchyma. It grows inside the parenchyma by compressing the liver tissue. And that compressed and fibrous tissue forms the ectocyst or the pericyst. Okay. And
Yes.
so it gets fluids from the lymphatics, liver lymphatics, the lymphatics from the surrounding tissue of this cyst. By the fluid osmosis, it gets its nutrition. Okay. So this
Yes,
is
sir.
the right answer, lymphatic fluid. Okay, so if you go to the pathology, it consists of 3 layers. Outermost layer is the adventitia, which is also known as the pseudocyst or the pericyst. It consists of the fibrous tissue, and it is a result of the reaction of the liver parenchyma to the parasite. So it is a compressed and the reactionary collagen tissue around the cyst by the liver parenchyma. Okay, so it is not part of the cyst, it is a part of the liver itself, this adventitia or the pseudocyst. Then you can see in this is the adventitia. So this is the thickest and the most prominent portion of the hydrated cyst what we see. Okay, now then the internal layer, which is comparatively thin as compared to the adventitia, is the laminated membrane or ectocyst. It is formed by the hydrated cyst. It is formed by the secretion from the endocyst or germinal epithelium. The secretion which are secreted outside the endocyst forms the ectocyst. So what whitish tissue we see on the operation table, it is the ectocyst. And the germinal epithelium, which is the actual living part of the hydrated cyst, which is a single layer epithelium, which cannot be seen by naked eyes on operation table. It is a single layer epithelium. That epithelium secretes fluid outside, forms the ectocyst, and the fluid that secretes inside, it is a hydrated fluid. From this single layer epithelium, there are the scolyses that further grows into daughter cysts and the protoscolyses. So these are the protoscolyses and these are the daughter cysts which has been grown from the scolyses from the germinal epithelium. Is it clear? So the only active part of the hydrated cyst is the germinal epithelium, which cannot be seen by naked eyes. It is a single layer epithelium. And what we see on table inside the whitish jelly-like structure, it is the ectocyst. And what we see very hard and tough outermost part of the hydrated cyst, it is the pericyst or the pseudocyst. Okay. So the endocyst secretes inside, externally is a laminated membrane, inside is the hydrated fluid, and it contains the brood capsules which contains cholecyst and which further goes into daughter cyst. The hydrated cyst grows slowly, approximately 2 to 3 centimeter per year. And again, this growth will be slow if the liver is cirrhotic. It is a normal liver, but there is no exact rate at which it grows. But the more the tissue or liver fibrosis will be there, lesser will be the growth of the hydrated cyst. In 10 to 30% of the cases, this will die and it will disintegrate spontaneously. And again, it will die if it gets calcified. Again, very simple logic. If it gets calcified, there will not be fluid osmosis from the pericyst. So for the tissue osmosis, the ectocyst has to be supple. Once it gets calcified, there won't be any fluid osmosis and it will die of the nutrition. The clinical features, again, most of the cases, as we all know, it is asymptomatic. Sometimes the patient may present with the enlargement of the liver because of the huge hydrated cyst. Sometimes there is a pain in the right hypochondriac region. The pain is mostly because of the huge mass that drags on the liver ligaments and gives a dragging pain in the right hypochondriac region. Or sometimes, very rarely, if it is infected and it is leaking into the biliary tree, that time it will give fever and the pain and the jaundice, like Charcot's trial-like presentation. But if it is secondarily infected and if it is not leaked, usually also it doesn't give any signs and symptoms of fever and all that, because there is no hematogenous communication with this cyst to give systemic signs of fever and the other sepsis signs. So only when it communicates with the biliary tree, an infected particle will come into the systemic circulation and will give signs of fever and sepsis. It may rupture inside the liver parenchyma to form multiple daughter cysts of the pericystic vesicles, multiple pericystic vesicles. I will show you one video of that. Or it may rupture into the biliary tree or peritoneal cavity or the pleural cavity, giving the signs and symptoms of urticaria, eosinophilia, or maybe anaphylactic shock, or implantation into other viscera like the peritoneal organs of the pleural cavity. So now the question is, I think we have answered this. We have discussed about this. So what is a radical cure? My next question is, what is a radical cure? Pear, capitonage, cystopericystectomy, or lobectomy?
Not answering what is the radical cure. So we are getting answer like C, D, both C and D both are being replied. C is the most common thing which people are replying, sir. Yeah,
okay.
Cystopericystectomy is the thing which most of the people have replied. Some have given lobectomy as an answer. Some have taken both lobectomy and cystopericystectomy as the option.
Great. So again, right answer is again these both cystopericystectomy and lobectomy. Okay. So now my next question is, if the cyst fluid is not bile stained, does it rules out cystobiliary fistula?
1 minute, sir. 1 minute. Yeah. So don't reply as of now. 1 minute. Yeah. So if the cyst fluid is, sir has asked, if the cyst fluid is not bile stained, does it rule out cystobiliary fistula? Yeah, please respond. Most of the people are writing false. B. All have written B.
Great.
Only one or two A's, but most of them have B.
Right. So answer is false. It does not rule out okay, there is no cystobiliary communication. So I will come to that discussion later on. So it may rupture into the biliary tree. It can be minor rupture, which may just patient may come with abdominal pain with flushing urticaria. And if there's a major rupture, where the not only the cyst fluid, but some daughter cyst or the ectocyst has gone into the hydrated this biliary tree. So patient may present full-blown anaphylactic reaction, jaundice, because this daughter cyst will block the extrahepatic biliary tree, and this patient will present with severe chemical cholangitis, not in bacterial cholangitis, chemical cholangitis. The hydrated fluid itself may irritate the biliary tree, and patient may present with the cholangitis. So sometimes it may rupture into the bronchial tree, and from there the whole of the hydrated cyst content will be expurgated out, and this may give complete cure to the patient. Investigation, blood investigations, occasionally patient may present with eosinophilia if there is an intrabiliary rupture. Serums, alkaline phosphatase will be raised. And there are some serological tests like ELISA, indirect hemagglutination test, this complement fixation test, basophil agglutination test. So all these are there just for the theoretical purpose to ask postgraduate questions in the examination, but they are not at all available anywhere around us. So in clinical practice, there is no significance of any serological test. The most commonest investigation what we do is the ultrasonography and the CT scan. Based on these two investigations only, we diagnose this case and we take decision whether to operate these cases or not. So my question is again, what are the two important sonographic signs they are seen in this image? Can they type and send?
Yes, they can type, sir. They can type. It will need 15-20 seconds for us to get the answer.
Please. I want two important signs they are seen in this sonology image.
Yes, sir. So we have started getting the responses. I'll let some people reply and then I'll tell what people have started replying.
Yes.
Okay. So sir, so we have got around 10 to 12 responses. So the most common thing which people have written is multicystic. The next common sign which people have written is water lily sign. Then cartwheel appearance or honeycombing appearance is written by some. Floating membrane is written by one person. And well-defined cyst with septations is the thing which we have written.
Okay. So in ultrasonography, these are the two common images we get to see. So this is like the typical is the hypoechoic cystic lesion in the liver parenchyma. And if you appreciate there are multiseptate lesions, and if you appreciate there is a single outer hypoechoic wall. Okay? Okay. But if you see this picture which I had given as a question, here there are multiseptate like this. So this is known as the cartwheel appearance. Someone had answered. So this is very typical of the hydrated cyst of the liver where you get cartwheel appearance. So what is different between this image and this image? And if you see here this part, here there are two hyperechoic lines are seen. Can you appreciate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir.
So this outer hyperechoic layer is the pseudocyst or pedicyst, and then the inner hypoechoic layer is the ectocyst or laminated membrane. Okay. So when you get this side, this is known as the split wall side. We can see two different walls. Here you don't see any single two different walls, only single wall is there. Okay, so whenever you get to see this split wall sign, again this is a dead hydrated cyst, and this ectocyst gets separated from the pericyst or the pseudocyst. Already it has lost its communication. So these are also on CT scan. These water lily signs you mentioned these are what. So this you can see this complete ectocyst is completely separated from the pericyst. So this is known as a water lily sign, when whole of the ectocyst is floating into the hydrated fluid. So this water lily sign and this split wall sign, they are the signs of the again dead hydrated cyst. So if these cysts are small, they are not causing any symptoms, then this should be left alone because they are already dead. They are not going to grow further and they are very unlikely to develop some complications. Okay, so on CT scan also you can appreciate these are the water lily sign and the cardival appearance signs, multiple peripheral daughter cysts. So for the diagnosis of the confirmation of the diagnosis, CT scan has better sensitivity as compared to ultrasonography, because only simple is the ultrasonography is the operator dependent. But if you have got very good sonologist, CT scan and ultrasound both are equally good investigation. But if you want to do surgery and you want to plan cystopericystectomy or you want to plan partial cystectomy, then as a surgeon you need CT scan with contrast, 3-phase contrast CT scan. I will come to that later part of the discussion. Next investigation is, now it is just to complete the list, that the X-ray abdomen, where you can see completely well calcified hydrated cyst. So again, this is a dead hydrated cyst. If it is in the segment 8 and 7 of the liver, you can see a raised left dome of the diaphragm, and basal collapse sign or pleural effusion you will be able to see if it has ruptured into the pleural cavity. I will come to the treatment part. The medical line of treatment, it is indicated, I will finish it fast. It is less than 5 centimeter. It is deep inside the liver parenchyma and patient is asymptomatic. There are multiple cysts, small cysts in the liver parenchyma, or there are multiple intra-abdominal cysts, or there is an accidental contamination of the peritoneum during the operation. You must put this patient on the medical line of treatment. The most common is what we use, the albendazole. It is doses 10 milligram per kg per day in 2 divided doses. You can give it 28-day cycle with a 3 weeks treatment and 1 week free for the of the treatment. Again, you can same cycle, minimum 3 cycles you should continue of 21 days. Then prazoquintil you can use if the this albendazole is not patient is allergic or is not responding. The definitive treatment is the surgical treatment. With medical line of treatment, you can stop the growth of the cyst, but hardly it will regress in its size. So if patient is symptomatic because of the weight of the cyst, because of the compression effect, because there is a secondary infection, we have to treat this patient with the surgical management. So what are the principles of surgical management? We must remove the total infective component of the cyst. So we should not leave any active component of the cyst behind. The awareness of the spillage of the cyst content at the time of surgery, management of the communication between the cyst and the other adjacent organ like the pleural cavity or the biliary tree or the bowel, if at all. It has been reported that it has communicated into the, it has ruptured into the bowel, large bowel. Management of the residual cyst cavity, because if the residual cyst cavity is cup shaped, there are always chances of accumulation of the fluid. That fluid gets secondarily infected and it may turn into abscess, and minimize the risk of reoperation. So the another minimally invasive technique which was attempted is a PAIR, that is a percutaneous aspiration, installation of the scolecidal agent and re-aspiration. So obviously it was indicated for the unilocular cyst. If it is a multilocular cyst, you cannot do PAIR. If patient is not fit for surgery, or there is a recurrence after the surgery, or there are multiple previous operations where reaching the hydrated cyst is going to be challenging itself, then you can do PAIR. Again, before PAIR, you must do serological test to confirm it is a hydrated cyst and not the liver cyst. Because as I mentioned, PAIR is possible only in unilocular cyst. So on sonology or on the CT scan, you also must have experienced it's very difficult to differentiate between the hydrated cyst and the liver cyst unless we aspirate the fluid or you see the cyst content. So you must confirm its diagnosis of hydrated cyst. Aspirate 10 to 15 ml of the cyst fluid for the confirmation of the diagnosis and test for the antigen and make sure there is no bile in the aspirate. If there is obvious bile, then obviously there is a communication and you should not do PAIR at all. Then inject the scolecidal agent inside and after 5 to 10 minutes, depending upon what solution you are using, we re-aspirate the same quantity of fluid and again re-instill scolecidal agent. So how much you must do? Almost 1.5% of the estimated volume of the cyst fluid. Suppose we have calculated 500 ml of the cyst fluid, you must inject 750 ml of the scolecidal agent altogether. Then you must stop doing the procedures. So again we discussed this slide before that the 50% of the betadine, you will see after 5 minutes the cyst will be dead. Even after 10 minutes, cyst will be dead. 10% of the betadine, what we are using in the clinical practice. Even after 10 minutes, the cyst will be live. Savulon 1%, 5%, 1%, it is very effective. Hydrogen peroxide 3% and 1.5%, it is effective, but 0.3%, it is not effective. Ethanol 95% effective, 50%, 47.5% not effective. Saline, hypertonic saline 20% effective, 10%, 5% not effective, but 20% effective. So this is recommended 1% Savulon or 0.1% up to 0.1% you can go, or 20% saline. Rest, because it's very difficult that 10% saline you will wait for 10 minutes every time. So you better you use 20% saline or Savulon, cetrimide. Again we mentioned. So what I will discuss first, surgical treatment, what commonly we are practicing. So most commonly, this is a clinical scenario where there is a hydrated cyst which is protruding from the segment 7 or 8. So what we do laparoscopically, we puncture it with the procar, then we take out all the fluid and the daughter cyst on same puncture site, and when it is adequately decompressed, then we take out the protruding part of the hydrated cyst out of the liver parenchyma. So this is known as the partial cystectomy. So what is the problem with the partial cystectomy? We leave behind very large residual cyst cavity. So what problem happens if it is a partial cystectomy is there is a large cyst cavity. If it is thin wall, we can do capitonage. That means we can suture these opposite walls. So if it is a thin wall and soft and supple, then only you can pull it together to collapse this cyst cavity. Large cavity, we make it small and we make it to collapse. So there is no fluid collection. So we can suture. Can you appreciate? We are suturing these opposite walls and we pulling it so that like this. So we are suturing, taking the stitches and they are pulling it so the opposite wall they get approximated and the cavity get collapsed. So capitonage is possible only when the cyst wall is thin, soft, pliable. They are not thick and they are not calcified. The next option is if they are thick wall and there is no dependent drainage, then you can obliterate this. If it is thick wall, capitonage is not possible. You have to obliterate with the omentoplasty, so that the omentum will grow inside the cyst cavity and it will not allow any fluid to accumulate inside. So whenever you puncture, you must keep another suction drainage around it. So whatever smallest fluid is getting leaked out, you must aspirate there and there only. So now you can appreciate and stitching this omentum to the cyst wall. So you must nicely pack this cyst cavity with the good amount of omentum. So from the beginning, it will not allow fluid to accumulate, and with the time, it will further grow into the cyst cavity to accumulate the cyst cavity, accommodate the cyst cavity, so the fluid will not be accumulated. The third option is that it is the residual cyst cavity is either infected with the secondary bacteria or it is bile stain. In that case, we have to put the drain inside. If it is bile stain and if it is a minor leak, which is obviously seen, we can do suturing of this minor leak. What we are seeing, the defect in the biliary tree. So this is one video. I will come to that later. If there is no obvious leak, we just put the external drain there. So here you can see, this is the hydrated cyst here. So it is bile stain. So it looks there is obvious leak. So after that, you must wash this cyst wall very thoroughly with the saline and aspirate all the cyst content and try to make a sincere attempt to identify the leak. If the leak is not identified in spite of all attempts, then you can just leave the, so I'm giving the thorough wash to identify the cystobiliary communication. If not possible, just put the drain inside and come out. So I'm sucking out all the stuck, this gelatinous material. In spite of that, if I'm not getting cystobiliary communication, so put the drain and come out. Sometimes post-operatively, this bile start leaking into the drain. You can appreciate there is a Marico's catheter and it was draining bile post-operatively. Then what you can do? You can do post-operative ERCP and identify the which this is leaking segment, and you can just put the drainage, biliary drainage with wide sphincterotomy. This leak will stop. But if there is a major leak, and check intraoperatively for you do cholangiogram through the major leak, you pass the interfilling tube into the biliary radical, inject contrast, get cholangiogram on table. If there are multiple filling defect in the biliary tree, on table you do colodocotomy, take out all the daughter cysts from the biliary tree and close the colodocotomy and also the cystobiliary communication. But if you are not confident of doing colodocotomy on table, then we can just put the drainage tube in the cyst cavity and refer this patient post-operatively for ERCP for the extraction of the all the these hydrated daughter cysts or the ectocyst into the biliary tree, and you can do stenting. So you can appreciate here again, this is the hydrated cyst. The fluid was coming, bile was coming into the cyst cavity. On careful inspection, we identified there is a big biliary communication. You can add it. So this was communicating with the left main duct. So we pass the infant feeding tube on table. You can appreciate there is a bile. We did intraoperative cholangiogram, and it was showing multiple filling defect. You can see now. This is the infant feeding tube, and on cholangiogram there is a filling defects into the biliary tree. So we have ERCP facility in our own institute. So we avoided doing intraoperative choledochotomy. Now on ERCP, you can appreciate we did stenting, and these daughter cysts were extracted with the wide sphincterotomy. Another patient we can appreciate here. Some videos are not running. Sorry. I will share all this video later. So we can do intraoperative this ERCP, wide sphincterotomy, and the extraction of these daughter cysts and ectocysts. If on intraoperative cholangiogram there is no filling defect, we can just switch out the cysto-biliary communication and put the external drain. Now, after doing some cases with partial excision, we came across of a patient with having multiple residual abscess in the cyst cavity. So we thought of why not to do radical excision, that is cystopericystectomy, so that all these post-operative complications, biliary leak, fluid getting accumulated into the hydrated cyst, and we struggled to settle these post-operative multiple abscesses into the residual cavity for months together, and they just refused to collapse because these cyst walls are thick, fibrous, calcified, so they don't collapse at all, and fluid keep getting accumulated, and it was really challenging to manage this patient. So with that thought, we thought of doing cystopericystectomy. So what is cystopericystectomy? You take out the ectocyst with pericyst in toto. So what left behind is the normal tissue parenchyma, and so there are no chances of fluid getting accumulated there, and this cyst later on grows to form the normal liver without any cavity, residual cavity. So this is our first case. एक मिनट है, so you can see this is the central hydrated cyst of the liver in the segment 5 and 6. So video seen, sir?
See the video, sir. We can see the video. Nice.
Yeah. So this is in the central part, segment 5, 6, 7, 8. Initially, I decompressed the cyst, and then after decompression, I started peeling the cyst wall from the normal liver parenchyma. So what I am holding is the pericyst. Whatever whitish structure inside, it is the ectocyst. We can appreciate slowly with the blunt dissection force, I'm taking away this pericyst from the liver parenchyma and the biliary radicals and the portal radicals. So we have to be very careful and gentle while handling, because these are stretched out thin wall biliary and portal radicals. So you must have seen I have applied tips first. Now I am dividing with the harmonic sulfate very carefully. So these are the again stressed of the hepatic radicals. These are the hepatic way, middle hepatic way. You have to be very careful. So I am taking out this pericyst from this middle hepatic way. Now you will see the residual cyst cavity inside the liver parenchyma, not inside the liver normal parenchyma. So these are the hepatic radical. Oh, these are the states of the portal radical, and this is the normal liver parenchyma. So there is no cyst wall at all. So later on, this liver grows and this cavity is completely obliterated. And we keep one thread for any biliary communication. So now you can appreciate here. I will just open run open cancel. So just a minute, sir. This is open call. Go back. So after initial experience of doing small cyst in the periphery of the liver and in the deep liver parenchyma, we started doing major complex procedure like the right hepatectomy or left hepatectomy, where the whole right lobe or left lobe is occupied by the this liver cyst. So you can appreciate here this now. This is the left lobectomy, left hepatectomy. This is the falciform ligament which was stretched out over the hydrated cyst. So first we decompress it. Again, we will appreciate, we always keep one suction drain. So whatever fluid leaks, we immediately sucked out. So there is no contamination of the peritoneal cavity. So once adequate decompression is done, so whatever then we did further mobilization of the this liver, this protruding wall of the hydrated cyst. So you can appreciate this is the falciform ligament. So we are going up to the hepatic veins. So complete cyst was mobilized. Then whatever this protruding part was there, we excise it. So now the only part which is adherent to the liver parenchyma, that's the left behind. So this is what we do normally, but now again we started excising that also under vision. Now you can appreciate this is a IVC here. These are the right hepatic vein, and this is the left hepatic vein. This is left hepatic vein. Can you appreciate? So we are dissecting it further.
Yes, sir.
So this is left hepatic vein. So we are dissected all around. We clipped it and divided. Now again, we started dissecting rest of the ectocyst from the rest of the liver parenchyma. So all these small biliary or portal radicals, you have to clip them and then divide. Otherwise, post-operatively, it may not bleed here, but it may leak as a biliary radical post-operatively. So now this is the portal pedicle. So you have to ligate this portal pedicle. It contains hepatic artery, left portal vein, left hepatic artery, and the left hepatic duct. Once it is dissected all around, we ligate it with transfixation. So once this portal radical is ligated, we take out this residual cyst from the IVC. So you can see this is the ligated hepatic radical, hepatic pedicle. This is portal pedicle, and this is normal liver parenchyma, normal right lobe of the liver. So you can appreciate now these multiple clips which are applied to ligate this stressed out portal and biliary radicals. Also, you can these portal radicals. Can you appreciate these portal radicals?
Yes, sir. We are seeing that.
So again, we have to inspect this parenchyma for any bile leak. Now you can see there is a small bile leak here. So if you found, you have to clip it. So you must spend enough time to inspect this residual liver parenchyma for any biliary leak. So you can appreciate there is hardly any bleeding. Just initially, we used to keep this Surgicel. Nowadays, we have stopped keeping this Surgicel also. So this is complete cure. This is the radical excision with cystopericystectomy. Same way we have done right hepatectomy. You can see this is gallbladder. This is the normal left lobe. And now this is a large cyst on the right lobe of the liver. Again, we decompress, keep one suction tube outside this trocar. So if at all any is accidental leakage, you should be able to suck it out immediately. So the protective path exercise, this is the part which is stuck to the normal liver parenchyma. Then we started taking this out from the normal liver parenchyma. You can appreciate this is falciform ligament. This is segment 4 of the right lobe. So we started taking out this pericyst, which is adherent to the segment 4. Again, you can appreciate this is now right hepatic vein here. It's stretched out the biliary these hepatic radicals. This is the pericyst. Now this is segment. This is anterior pedicle. Pedicle of the anterior segment of the right lobe, which are transfixing. This is the right posterior segment, which I am transfixing now. So once this portal is ligated, is taken out. Now you can appreciate this is the IVC here. This is the right lobe, the left lobe. And this is the right hepatic vein. So this is right posterior pedicle, right anterior pedicle, and complete right hepatectomy. So there are another challenges that if it is adherent to the diaphragm, most of the time, and we leave some segment stuck to the diaphragm. So what we do, even we take out this adherent portion of the, sorry, hello.
Yes, sir. We are listening. Yevla, ma'am.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can take some questions so far, if anything is there.
Yeah, Meenakshi, ma'am, please go ahead. Hello, Meenakshi, ma'am. We have unmuted you, Meenakshi, ma'am. Okay, sir. Can I ask you the question till that time?
Yes.
So, sir, in both the cases which you showed, the left hepatectomy or the right hepatectomy which was done, majority part of the hydrated cyst was hanging out. As we could see, when you did partial cystectomy, on left side there was hardly some some wall was remaining on the left segment 4. Segment 4. And on the right side also same thing. Majority of the wall or majority of the hydrated cyst was cleared. There was no bile leak and all. Then why you thought of doing a complete radical or hepatectomy? Why? What was the rationale for doing a hepatectomy? Because see, I know
yes,
we can get ahead with clipping all the anterior, posterior ducts, right hepatic vein and all. But then it is a far bigger surgery as compared to a simple deroofing or a simple partial cystectomy which we do. And when majority of the system is being removed, then why? My question is why to go ahead with that?
Yeah, good question. See, as a protocol or as a or unit strategy, we are trying to do cystopericystectomy. Because I will see videos are not running. I will show some like hydrated cysts in the caudate lobe of the liver. Okay, there definitely fluid is going to get collected there, or when there is a saucer shaped cup shaped deformity in the segment 7 and 8. That time this you cannot go away just with a partial cystectomy, which is the commonest site. So in that, this is just to increase your experience, confidence. You have to keep doing in every case. If you really select some cases where I will do cystopericystectomy routinely, if you're not doing, and in that case you will get stuck. So that's why in our unit strategies try to do in as much cases as possible. So in that, see, there is, as far as you are doing nice job, there is no harm at all. Okay.
No, sir, but in your expert hand, it's okay, sir. But then if we give out message,
so to get that expertise, we have to start doing simple cases. And when real indicated tough case come, then you are experienced enough and confident enough to tackle such situation. As you know, in residency, first we start with simple appendix. Okay, then we go to the complicated appendix or the gallbladder. Same thing. Though we cannot say it is not indicated. It is the treatment of choice, but you can go away with some alternative like partial cystectomy, which is comparatively safer. So we opt for that. But that is not the radical cure.
Understood,
but it is
sir.
accepted. But it is accepted. That's why in our unit, as a strategy, each and every case we go for the cystopericystectomy. I am coming. In some cases, for us also, it may not be possible to do cystopericystectomy, especially when these vessels are very close to the cyst, where we cannot dissect it under vision. They are like, deep cup-shaped deformity, where you cannot dip inside the pericyst to dissect under vision. So what I have started, it's my technique now. See, like this. I hope this video runs. So now this is deformity in segment 7 and 8. If it is close to this, at this part of the cyst, where I cannot peep inside under vision. Okay. For the radical hepatectomy, I can see here vessels. But for this deformity, it's very difficult to dissect this part under vision. So, okay. So what I have started doing it, I can see here safely. I can dissect here. Okay, laterally. So I do the cystopericystectomy on the lateral part.
Okay.
And I am scared going here. So I do cystopericystectomy this much part. Okay, I leave behind this. Okay. Now there is no cup-shaped deformity. This is like sausage-shaped deformity.
Yeah. So post-op ultrasound, which keeps on saying that there is residual hydrated won't be seen in this type of picture.
And what happens? Not only the cup-shaped deformity, we are making sausage shape. What happens? This liver, where there is no cyst wall, is start going inside the residual cavity. Instead of having there is no cavity. Are you getting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood. Sir, but then out of cystopericystectomy or
hello?
Understood. Yes, sir. But between cystopericystectomy and lobectomy, what would be your preference? Because I feel cystopericystectomy would be far more difficult comparative to lobectomy per se proper.
See, in cystopericystectomy, you are not touching to the liver, normal liver parenchyma a bit also. You are not destructing normal liver parenchyma at all. But in lobectomy, suppose there is a cyst here and doing left lobectomy, so you are taking out some normal liver parenchyma.
Yeah, but then, sir, the chances of bile leak and bleeding will be far more in cystopericystectomy as compared to a normal hepatectomy or a anatomical lobectomy. Which we do.
No. I don't think so. If you are careful, because you are not actually ligating or dividing the biliary radical. Only stressed out biliary radical, you may injure it. That you have to take care. You are not dividing. I'm telling you, whatever biliary radical, portal radical you saw, they are stressed out over the our hydrated cyst. They are not supplying the cyst where we are clipping them and ligating them. They are just stressed out. Okay. So small radical, we have to just keep clipping it because they should not leak. Because you never know when you will damage them. If it is major biliary radical, portal radical, you are damaged, they will bleed on table, they will leak on table.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Are you getting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood. Understood. Sir. So these are the small stretched out radicals which we take care of rather than bigger one in cystopericystectomy. That's what you said.
Exactly. So we just separate it away from the cyst wall.
Yeah. Understood, sir. Okay. I'll take questions from other. Sir, are there more slides?
I just complete this video. So this is what I have started doing. Now this is again in segment 7 and segment 8, very close to the hepatic pedicle, hepatic veins. So we have to dissect this D-roof as much as possible so that we take out this protruding part of the cyst. Now, medially, I could not peep inside here to dissect under vision. So what I am doing, I am just laterally, I am taking out this thick cyst wall from the normal liver parenchyma. Now you see there, I am just dividing or separating away this normal liver parenchyma. I am not dividing any portal, biliary radical or anything. Just you can appreciate how thick this cyst wall. This cavity will never collapse otherwise if we leave it as it is. You can appreciate how thick wall it is. So whatever protruding, whatever cyst wall is there on the left side, I am taking it out, making this cup shaped deformity into sausage shaped deformity.
Yes.
Now we'll appreciate this is the cyst wall which is adherent to the medially, and this is laterally normal liver parenchyma. Now this liver parenchyma will grow over this cyst, this cavity. So the large cavity, we are making it a very small cyst, slit-like cavity. Is it clear?
Yes. Yes, sir.
I will just share another videos. Till then we can discuss something if you have. This is another video where it ruptures into the pleural cavity. Now already drain was kept outside, and we can appreciate it had ruptured into the peritoneal cavity, and also it had a communication into the pleural cavity. Can you appreciate? The fluid is coming from the pleural cavity with air. So what we have to do, we have to keep another chest tube in the pleural cavity. You can appreciate now. We're going into the pleural cavity, and we have passed another chest tube into the pleural cavity. Can you appreciate here drain? This is the pleural cavity, and this is the drain here. And you thorough wash, take out all the daughter cysts from the pleural cavity, close this communication in the diaphragm, and just give a thorough wash here, and it's your normal than intra-abdominal hydrated cyst. Another patient who ruptured. So this is the last. So you have to do ERCP, and you can appreciate this anterior segment is leaking to the cavity here. This is the drain here, and this leaking in the cyst cavity. So what you have to do? You have to just do sphincterotomy and put the drain, this stent. This will stop. Now this is ERCP again. It is a huge intrabiliary rupture hydrated cyst. You can appreciate multiple filling defect in the corn bile duct, and again dilated intrahepatic biliary radicals. And with ERCP, we are taking out all these daughter cysts and the ectocyst. So if you do intraoperative cholangiogram, if there is a filling defect on table, you do choroidocotomy, take out all these daughter cysts or ectocyst. If not possible, just put the drain, refer this patient for post-operative ERCP and the biliary clearance.
Thank you, sir. Meenakshi ma'am, please unmute your, yeah, okay.
8 minutes, sir. Just last slide.
No issue, no issue. Yeah.
So this is again a huge hydrated cyst. So if it is a cystoperistectomy, we are very aggressive. These are adherent to the diaphragm very badly. So we took out all this pericyst from the diaphragm. So we had to open the diaphragm. We opened diaphragm. We took out all the pericyst and then we just repaired the diaphragm. So most of the time in these cases, the diaphragm is stretched out. There is a lot of laxity of the diaphragm. So you get enough diaphragm to close it later on. So there is no scarcity of the diaphragm if you create any defect also. So very comfortably post-operatively you can close the diaphragm. So there is a rent in the diaphragm. We just suture it back with the Vicryl. But we make sure that all this pericyst is taken out. Sorry. So just last video. So again, we are doing cystopericytectomy, and there is a large bile leak. Can you appreciate here?
Yes.
There is a defect.
Yeah, that is a big.
And bile is coming.
Yes.
So again, we have to do intraoperative cholangiogram. Make sure there is no filling defect. If there is no filling defect, we just suture this with the Prolene. This is how you have to suture it. But every time if there is a major obvious biliary leak, we have to do intraoperative cholangiogram just with the infant feeding tube. I think I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Meenakshi ma'am, please. Any questions or your comments? Meenakshi ma'am. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, so if we have any questions, please raise your hand. Sanjay Ghate sir from Chandrapur has a question. I'll get him online. Sanjay sir.
Good evening, Praveen sir.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for
a nice presentation, and particularly videos are very good, high resolution.
Yes, thank you very much.
My question is, you have shown the pleural connectivity of the hydatid cyst. Have you sometimes dealt with the pleural pericyst adhered to the lungs, and how differ it from the liver?
In fact, this was not a topic. This extra more than other than hepatic, I have not included. Otherwise, we have operated all possible sites like pancreas, kidney, muscles, uterus, liver, lungs. So lung is the most easiest site to operate because there is no pericyst. Again, as I mentioned, you get pericyst only in the liver because it is a compressed solid organ. So it is a compressed liver parenchyma. So in lungs, you don't get pericyst. It is only ectocyst. It ruptures very easily and you can suck it out without much any difficulty. Whole cyst can be sucked out.
Even pleura will not be thickened there?
No. Not much difficulty.
Okay, sir. Thank you, and thank you for your lecture.
Question is from Dr.
Yes.
Sir, next question is from Dr. Shirish Chaudhary, sir, Chandrapur. Shirish, sir.
Yes.
Shirish, sir, please ask your question.
Hello, sir. Very nice presentation. I wanted to ask a question that if we get the simultaneous lungs and liver hydatid, we have read that lung hydatid should be dealt first.
Yes, right.
So,
right.
What's your criteria of, because you have treated liver hydatid first and then you gone through the diaphragm and then removed.
No, no, see, that was not a lung hydrated. It was a liver hydrated which had ruptured into the pleural cavity. So from the same opening, I drained out everything.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, second question is, even after radical surgery, how many days we have to give anti-helminthic drugs?
If you had done radical surgery and there was no spillage, no need to give anti-helminthic. Anti-helminthic should be given only if there's an intraoperative spillage of the cyst or we are suspecting some residual cyst. If radical, it's a radical completely, cyst is out, there was no spillage.
Thank you, sir.
No
Thank you, sir.
need. No need.
So next question is from Dr. Abhilash Mali. Abhilash, I have unmuted you. Please go ahead with your question. Dr. Abhilash. Dr. Rahul Lokhande, next question. Dr. Rahul.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, after doing partial pericystectomy, whether we need to drain inside that cavity or putting drain outside that cavity, so that which is beneficial, sir?
See, it depends upon the location of the cyst. Okay. If cyst is located in the middle segment of the liver, like the segment 8 or segment 4, 5, then it is better to keep inside the cavity if the cavity is large enough. If it is laterally placed cyst, then you can keep between the cavity and the lateral parietal wall. Because I have treated not less than 10 patients who came with a drain inside the abdominal cavity, but the located collection far away from the drain. Yeah. So it's always better to keep a drain inside the cavity. So if at all any biliary leak is there, it is directly drained out through the drain.
Sir, if post-operative first day there is a leak about 300 to 500 ml, then immediately we have to do ERCP or we have to wait for 1 week or 2 weeks after that we do this ERCP, sir? See,
what happened in normal liver injury or normal, suppose I am doing cyst hepatectomy, all that. So there the surrounding liver parenchyma is normal in that case. So there it will heal the leak easily. But in hydrated cyst, everything is fibrous there. So it will never leak spontaneously. There is no normal liver parenchyma to heal the leak. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
So 99% this leak never stops spontaneously. We have to do sphincterotomy and the biliary drainage.
As early as possible, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So, sir, 1 minute. Next, sir, we have 2-3 questions which people have put up here. I'll ask you. We'll finish these questions quickly. So the question is, what medical line of treatment, which drug dose and duration? I guess we have covered this. We have told it very clearly. Then what is the best preferred approach for hydrated cyst close to major vessel? This is one question from Shubhashri Page.
So see again, if you see this video, this is a caudate lobe video. Where the hydrated cyst is between the portal vein and the inferior vena cava. Anteriorly, there are the portal radical and portal vein, and inferiorly there is the inferior vena cava. So what are, again, the part of the hydrated cyst which was under vision. So you can appreciate here, this is the right hepatic vein, this is the middle hepatic vein here, and this is the left hepatic vein. So if it is the vessels are under vision, I don't think you need not to be afraid of these vessels. Okay, very safely and comfortably you can separate it from it. But if you are not, is not under vision, then it is better to leave it there and do partial cystectomy. So now this is IVC. I just finished this. So you can say IVC here. This is IVC. This is the right crus of the diaphragm. This is middle hepatic vein. This is left hepatic vein. This is right hepatic vein. Can you appreciate?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this was under vision. I had excised, but this part where I could not see beyond this pericyst. So I left it behind. So whatever part you can see is very safe. If it is not able to dissect under vision, you just leave it. That is the only criteria. Otherwise, whatever big vessel, whether it is IVC, hepatic vein, I'm really not scared with whatever experience or whatever cases I have done, because they are just stretched out vessels. They are very safe to dissect and separate it from the pericyst.
So, sir, one more question is there here. So, management of renal hydrated, you do partial nephrectomy or drain it?
I do again cystopericyctic, total cystectomy.
Total cystectomy. Okay. So, one more question is how to suspect cystobiliary communication in absence of cholangitis or obstructive jaundice preoperatively? These are residents who are asking the question, sir. So,
see, I have one video. I will show that also. That again, we have to do we have to search it very carefully, and we suction have to keep sucking a different area like that. And all of see, again, I am telling you, why do you do
preoperative? How to suspect preoperatively if there is no obstructive jaundice and cholangitis? What are the criteria in which you can suspect
then just aspiration.
Okay.
So
okay.
This is case again intrabiliary rupture, intraperitoneal rupture. Did you appreciate?
Yes, sir.
So we aspirated fluid, and then this cyst is collapsed. Then I am taking out the excess protruding part. This is important video. Now there is a cyst in a cyst. This is the major cyst. This is another cyst cavity. Can you appreciate here this one?
Yes, sir.
So this is the pericyst vesicle. So this is the reason for the recurrence if you don't do pericystectomy. If you don't, so whatever part you are leaving behind, and there are these pericyst vesicle, this will recur. You can see a cyst and a cyst. And this is a small cavity, and this is the main cyst, and this is another pericyst. Now there was a blood stain, but I was not able to see the leak. So I kept searching, and now you will see this came out. Once this daughter cyst came out of the biliary radical, now bile start flowing from there. I will see. Now the normal bile is flowing from this opening. See now normal bile is flowing. So now the normal bile is flowing.
Yeah.
So you have to keep searching like this. So that's the only way. Sir, 99% you will find the biliary communication. And if at all is very small, tiny, where you cannot look in that part of the cyst, we just put the drain and explain patient and relatives that post-operatively patient may leak the bile. In that case, we have to do ERCP and things will be settled.
Yeah. So, sir, we have a question from our president of Surgical Society, Nagpur, Vikram Desai, sir. Vikram,
Yes.
sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. Excellent presentation, creative technique, nice videos. I have a comment and a query. As Yogesh was saying, for an essentially benign disease like hydrated cyst, why would one go for a partial hepatectomy or a lobectomy where you can safely come out with a capitonage or a cystopericycectomy at the most?
Yes. See, I'm not saying this is to be done in each and every case and everyone has to do it. Partial cystectomy is well accepted alternative, for any surgical treatment management. But if at all you are able to do it, you are able to give the total radical cure to the patient without any extra risk and complication, there is no harm. So if you are confident, if you are able to do it, please go ahead. If not, please don't bother about it.
Okay. And my query is, in a given patient with simultaneous hydatid cysts in the lung and the liver, can you operate them in the same setting, or you need to do it at separate settings?
I will see what is the risk basically. Again, I had such a situation. If patient is quite healthy, no added comorbidity and all that, lung hydatid also peripherally situated, and
Yeah.
everything is fine, I will plan simultaneously. But the lung
Okay.
hydatid is, in the centrally placed, patient has a lot of
Right.
comorbidity. So I will just do a lung hydatid, fast come out, let the patient settle, and then in second setting, I will do the liver hydatid cyst. So
Okay.
unnecessarily, I will not extend the operative time in one setting.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very
Sir,
much.
one more question from Dr. Ashok Gajbia, sir. Ashok,
Yes,
sir.
Hello. Good evening, sir. Praveen, sir. Good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Good evening, sir.
Nice operative presentation. I want to
Thank you,
ask
sir.
a simple question.
Uh,
How to close the bronchial communication in
Bronchial,
case of
sir.
pulmonary hydatid cyst?
So you must suture it. That's the only way. I had only one case where I staple it, frankly. I staple it.
Just staple it. Not
Yeah.
Prolene suture. You will not suture with the help of Prolene.
I don't have experience, sir, frankly speaking. Whether you can hold the, I really don't have experience.
How to suture it? Whether you
I think
will use this. Hello.
you can transfix it, sir, with the Prolene. You can transfix it.
Or figure of 8. Or you are using figure of 8.
Sir, I have seen some open surgeon, cardiothoracic surgeon, transfixing the bronchus while doing pneumonectomy and all that.
Transfixing.
That's the only
Okay.
experience that I have. But other, my personal, I don't have any experience. Suturing of the bronchus.
Okay. No.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'll just have a last question from my side. So, sir,
Yes.
my training was in Hyderabad Asian Institute. So we had one protocol where ERCP was readily available. So we had one protocol in which a centrally placed hydatid like segment 5, 6, or a hydatid which is more than 10 to 12 centimeter in size and all, in which even the LFT and all is normal. Just a day prior to surgery, we used to get an ERCP and placement of a nasobiliary tube done in these type of patients. The reason being on table detection of biliary leaks was far easier if you had an NBT in place, because getting a cholangiogram laparoscopically when you are doing it, it becomes very much easy. And if you have any leak which you are seeing on cholangiogram, if it's a minor, as you said, we just leave it. ERCP is already done, there won't be much bile. And if it's a major leak, then sometimes we even used to do a cystojejunostomy. Like we used to open a small 6 to 7 centimeter of cyst first. If there was a bile, after removing all the membranes, clearing it off with and if cholangiogram is showing a major leak, then we used to do a cystojejunostomy of these patients. Do you think any role of that?
See, I don't have any experience in cystojejunostomy, but I tell you, I have more than 30 videos of biliary leak managed in a different ways, and all 30 more than all. I don't have exact figure, but so far so everyone has done well. So what is my policy? I tell you, you must understand the pathophysiology of biliary leak. So whenever the cyst is tense and large, the fluid is very tense inside. Okay. So whenever it leaks into the biliary tree and the leak is small, the fluid inside the cyst will go into the biliary tree, not the bile will come into the cyst.
Yes.
So that time the fluid will not be stained with the bile.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Second possibility, that there is very large communication and this cyst content with the fluid will go into the biliary tree.
Yes, sir.
So again, in that case, this cyst content itself may block the biliary communication, and transiently we feel there is no communication. As in last case we saw, there was a bile stain, but there was no active bile flowing. And after pressure and sucking out, that cyst particle came out daughter cyst and bile started flowing. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so another process. So there is a communication, either block or there is a tense fluid. So in that case, see what happened, what I feel, because the sphincter is intact and because of the way why gallbladder feels, because there's a back pressure from the intact, closed sphincter, so the gallbladder get distended. Same way, if there's an intact sphincter, the bile will start leaking into the biliary tree or in the cyst cavity, and we will diagnose it post-operatively.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood.
So for me, the working sphincter, it is a diagnostic tool to diagnose the post-operative biliary leakage. If you
Yes,
do
sir.
pre-operative sphincterotomy, in spite of
Yes,
the biliary leak, you will not diagnose it.
Okay. Okay, sir. Understood.
You got it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Totally understood. So, sir, we will now close off the session. We had just one comment from Meenakshi ma'am. Her
Yes,
audio was not possible. There is some communication problem because of audio. What she was wanted to ask was, what about deep-seated hydrated cyst, in which there is no extrinsic thing which we can see on CT or even after putting a laparoscope. You are not seeing any membrane outside or any wall outside. A laparoscopic ultrasound guided puncture should be done for these cysts, or a pair should be good for these.
That's what. If they are less than 5 centimeter, then you can just treat it with medical management with the albendazole. But if they are more than 5 centimeter and they're causing pressure symptoms or the dragging pain, then the deep-seated adhesive base treated by the pair. No surgery.
Okay.
They are the ideal cases.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah. The videos and all, everything ran very smoothly, sir. The talk was excellent. Thank you very much.
Sir. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
sir. I wish everyone very happy and healthy this lockdown period.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We are switching off, sir. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sunit
Sood, sir. Sunit Sood, sir. You're online. Sunit Sood.